What if the very medicine you trust to heal you is secretly poisoning you instead? Across America, shelves have been stripped bare as 6 household name drugs, taken daily by millions, were yanked in shocking recalls. These weren't fringe products gathering dust in the corner of a pharmacy. They were bestsellers, prescribed for blood pressure, pain, heartburn, acne, and even weight loss. Yet hidden inside those pills lurked deadly risks: cancer-causing chemicals, heart-stopping side effects, and scandals that left families shattered. FDA investigations suggest that in just a handful of years, tens of thousands may have suffered heart attacks, strokes, or irreversible diseases tied to these so-called cures. Imagine swallowing what you thought was protection, only to discover you were feeding a silent killer every day. How many of us still have these bottles sitting quietly in our cabinets, waiting to betray us? This is the Downturn Report, where the truth gets personal. Stay with us as we uncover why these 6 medicines were swept off stores across America. And don't worry, at the end of each part, we'll reveal safer alternatives you can actually trust. Number 1. Vioxx. It was paraded as a miracle cure, plastered across TV screens with smiling athletes and glowing testimonials, yet beneath the glitter of billion-dollar marketing was a silent killer. Vioxx, introduced in 1999, was hailed as the gentler answer to arthritis and chronic pain, a pill that over 20 million Americans trusted to give them back their mobility and dignity. Doctors prescribed it like candy. Merck's sales skyrocketed to over $2.5 billion a year, and Olympic athletes even appeared in ads praising it. But the very pill meant to restore lives was quietly snatching them away. By the time the truth surfaced in 2004, experts estimated that Vioxx had triggered between 88,000 and 139,000 heart attacks, with tens of thousands of deaths. Ordinary working-class Americans blindsided by a drug that was supposed to help them. The reality was brutal. Studies revealed that long-term use of Vioxx could double a person's risk of heart attack or stroke. This was not a minor side effect to bury in the fine print. It was a catastrophe hiding in plain sight. Nearly 28,000 cardiac events were linked to the drug in just a 4.5-year span. When Merck abruptly pulled Vioxx from the shelves in September 2004, patients and doctors stood in shock, left wondering how such a lethal risk had been allowed to slip past regulators and stay in American medicine cabinets for 5 long years. Overnight, a blockbuster drug vanished, leaving behind not just shattered trust, but grieving families in courtrooms filled with accusations. And the scandal didn't end with the recall. Internal documents later revealed that Merck likely knew about Vioxx's cardiovascular dangers early on, but chose to downplay, obscure, and even manipulate data. Aggressive marketing campaigns deliberately minimize side effects, luring patients and physicians into a false sense of safety. This deception cost lives. Merck was hit with around 60,000 personal injury lawsuits from victims who had suffered heart attacks or strokes while on Vioxx. In 2007, the company agreed to pay $4.85 billion to settle most claims, one of the largest pharmaceutical settlements in history. But the punishment didn't stop there. In 2011, the Department of Justice fined Merck $950 million for illegal marketing and making false claims about Vioxx's safety. Investigations proved that the company promoted the drug for unapproved uses like rheumatoid arthritis before the FDA gave the green light, all while concealing its cardiovascular risks. To put it bluntly, Merck placed profits above patients, and the human toll was staggering. Tens of thousands of lives lost that might have been spared if the truth had not been buried under glossy ads and corporate spin. Vioxx became the poster child for pharmaceutical betrayal, a wonder drug turned weapon. Congressional hearings and public outrage forced reforms in drug safety monitoring, but no reform could erase the pain of those who had already lost loved ones. For older Americans, many of whom lived paycheck to paycheck and trusted their doctors implicitly, the scandal was a reminder that in the corporate pharmacy game, your health can become collateral damage in the chase for profit. But despair does not have to be the final word. Safer alternatives for pain management exist, and no one should have to choose between relief and a heart attack. Traditional NSAIDs like naproxen, Aleve, or ibuprofen, Advil, remain effective when used at the lowest dose for the shortest possible time. Unlike Vioxx, they don't carry the same extreme risk of sudden cardiac death, and they've been used safely by millions for decades. For milder aches and fevers, acetaminophen, Tylenol, provides relief without stomach bleeding or heart strain, though it must be taken responsibly to protect the liver. Doctors also recommend non-opioid options like diclofenac gel for localized joint pain, or short-term opioids in rare, carefully monitored cases. Beyond pharmaceuticals, arthritis sufferers can embrace proven natural methods, gentle swimming or walking to keep joints flexible, weight loss to ease stress on knees and hips, turmeric and omega-3 fish oil for anti-inflammatory support, and even simple therapies like alternating heat and cold packs. These options won't make Big Pharma billions, but they protect what matters most, your heart and your life. Number 2, Zantac. Imagine buying a fire extinguisher for your home, only to find out later that it secretly sprays gasoline instead of water. That's exactly what happened with Zantac, the so-called miracle pill that millions of Americans relied on for heartburn, ulcers, and acid reflux. For decades, pharmacies and grocery chains pushed it like candy at the checkout aisle, with ads promising comfort and relief. But the truth was more grotesque than a late-night horror flick. Independent testing revealed that Zantac's main ingredient, ranitidine, could break down and form NDMA, a chemical ranked by experts as one of the most vicious carcinogens ever identified. NDMA isn't just bad, it's the kind of compound that scientists use in lab experiments when they want to cause cancer in animals. And here it was, hiding in the very pill people swallowed every day to keep their stomachs calm. The betrayal is staggering. We're not talking about one tainted shipment or one sloppy factory. The problem was baked into Zantac itself. The longer it sat in your medicine cabinet, or even worse, in a hot car, the more toxic it became. Imagine a bottle of milk that turns more poisonous the longer you leave it in the fridge, except this wasn't milk, it was a prescription millions trusted. FDA scientists confirmed that NDMA levels in ranitidine increased over time, meaning a perfectly safe-looking pill on Monday could be a chemical grenade by Friday. This ticking time bomb led to Zantac's complete recall in April 2020, when the FDA ordered every single ranitidine product pulled from the shelves of CVS, Walgreens, Walmart, Costco, and beyond. But here's the part that makes blood boil. Evidence suggests drug makers may have known about this nightmare since as far back as 1981. Studies hinted ranitidine could form NDMA in the stomach, yet corporations stayed silent, pocketing billions while Americans unknowingly dosed themselves with a slow poison. Lawsuits soon piled up. Hundreds of cancer patients have dragged manufacturers into court, alleging cover-ups and negligence. Some claim internal research was deliberately buried. Think about that. Families burying their loved ones while companies buried incriminating paperwork. If this doesn't make your stomach turn more than the reflux itself, nothing will. The public health toll is still being measured, but the numbers are frightening. When NDMA contamination appeared in blood pressure drugs a few years back, FDA analysts estimated that for every 8,000 patients who took the tainted pills daily for 4 years, one extra cancer case could result. Multiply that risk by millions of Zantac users over decades, and the potential human cost becomes a silent epidemic. The drug that was supposed to extinguish your pain may have been quietly lighting fuses inside your body. Older Americans who took Zantac religiously for years now face the cruel realization that their so-called trusted medicine was more like a loaded gun with no safety switch. Now, where does this leave ordinary folks still battling acid reflux? Fortunately, the FDA has confirmed that safer alternatives exist. Famotidine, Pepcid, and cimetidine, Tagamet, showed no traces of NDMA. Proton pump inhibitors such as omeprazole, Prilosec, and lansoprazole, Prevacid, remain reliable choices without the cancer baggage. For occasional heartburn, simple over-the-counter antacids like Tums or Malox can help. Beyond the pill bottle, lifestyle tweaks make a real difference. Avoid stuffing yourself at night, cut down on coffee and alcohol, go easy on spicy food, and raise the head of your bed so acid doesn't creep upward while you sleep. Even small steps like keeping a healthier weight can make heartburn less of a daily war. So the message is clear. Zantac's mask has been ripped off, exposing a scandal that robbed Americans of trust, and for some, possibly their health. But you don't have to surrender to fear. Relief is still possible without gambling with cancer. The choice now is whether we keep letting corporations treat us like guinea pigs, or whether we take back control with safer medicines and smarter habits. Number 3. Fen-Phen. In the bright glow of the 1990s, when neon fitness outfits and crash diets ruled the culture, Americans were sold a chemical dream called Fen-Phen. It was marketed as the golden ticket for effortless weight loss, a simple pill combo that promised to melt away pounds while you lounged on the couch watching late-night sitcom reruns. And boy, did it catch fire. At its peak, roughly 1 in 20 Americans trying to lose weight took Fen-Phen, a staggering number that shows how desperate the country had become for quick fixes. Redux, one version of the drug, was prescribed to 2 million Americans in a single year, while about 4 million swallowed Pondamin before the hammer came down. But what people thought was a passport to skinny jeans turned out to be a one-way ticket to the cardiologist. By July 1997, doctors began raising alarms. Perfectly healthy young women who had taken Fen-Phen were suddenly showing up with damaged, leaky heart valves that looked like they belonged to retirees, not people in their 20s and 30s. Mayo Clinic researchers sounded the first siren with 24 alarming cases, and soon the FDA confirmed the nightmare. Nearly 1 in 3 patients on the drug showed abnormal valves. The miracle diet drug had become a mechanical heart wrecker. The mechanism of destruction was as sinister as it was silent. Fenfluramine, the Fen half of Fen-Phen, tampered with serotonin in heart tissue, leaving valves scarred and leaky, like doors that no longer closed properly. Add to that cases of deadly pulmonary hypertension, a rare but often fatal lung disease, and you had a diet fad that was doing more than trimming waistlines. It was cutting lives short. Dozens of deaths were reported, and countless others faced the terrifying prospect of heart surgery. By September 1997, the FDA forced American Home Products, later known as Wyeth, to recall fenfluramine and dexfenfluramine worldwide. Phentermine alone remained on the market, but the toxic Fen duo was gone for good. Overnight, Fen-Phen went from household name to household warning label, but the tragedy deepened into scandal. Fen-Phen was never formally FDA approved as a combo in the first place. It was prescribed off-label, with doctors mixing the two drugs like amateur bartenders. Redux, one of its key ingredients, had been rushed to approval in 1996 despite whispers of danger. Internal company memos suggested Wyeth knew about risks of pulmonary hypertension from European data as far back as the 1980s, but chose to sweep it under the rug. When the truth finally exploded, Wyeth was buried under lawsuits. The company ended up paying an astronomical $21 billion in settlements and legal claims, one of the largest payouts in pharmaceutical history. In one unforgettable case, a jury awarded $56.5 million to a single victim who suffered permanent heart damage. Fen-Phen didn't just ruin hearts. It became shorthand for corporate greed dressed up as wellness, a diet disaster that reshaped how Americans viewed weight loss fads. The human toll was haunting. By the time the FDA had collected its first batch of data, 92 confirmed cases of valvular heart disease had been documented out of less than 300 patients studied, a rate that suggested thousands more across the country were walking around with ticking time bombs in their chests. Even those who didn't feel symptoms were at risk of heart failure. Many patients needed lifelong cardiac monitoring, and some required surgery to repair the damage. For a generation chasing thinness, Fen-Phen proved that vanity pills could cost the very organ that keeps you alive. The episode sparked congressional scrutiny and pushed the FDA to strengthen post-marketing surveillance. But for those already harmed, no reform could undo the damage. The lesson is as sharp today as it was in 1997. Rapid weight loss isn't worth gambling your heart. Fortunately, safer alternatives exist. For those looking to shed pounds, the foundation remains a healthy diet, cutting sugar, excess calories, and processed fats, combined with steady exercise like walking, swimming, or cycling. Even modest weight loss of 5 to 10% of body weight can drastically improve health outcomes, and it can be achieved without dangerous shortcuts. Medically, the FDA has since approved safer options. Orlistat, sold as Ali or Zantac, helps block fat absorption, messy on digestion perhaps, but not deadly to the heart. Newer GLP-1 agonists like semaglutide or liraglutide have emerged as powerful tools, curbing appetite without the catastrophic risks of Fen-Phen. The safer half of the old duo, Phentermine, still plays a role today in combination with topiramate under the brand Qsymia, carefully formulated, to avoid the cardiac nightmares of the past. For severe obesity, bariatric surgery remains the most effective, delivering long-term results when managed responsibly. Beyond the medical arsenal, support groups, counseling, and structured programs double the odds of lasting success. The bitter taste of Fen-Phen still lingers, reminding Americans that no pill should be trusted blindly, no matter how dazzling the promise. Your heart is not worth trading for a smaller dress size. The road to health is slower, yes, but infinitely safer, and it doesn't end at the surgeon's table. Number 4. Accutane. Accutane was once hailed as the silver bullet against the teenage torment of acne, the drug so strong and so feared that dermatologists often called it the nuclear option. Introduced in 1982, isotretinoin became a household name for families desperate to cure the kind of cystic acne that no cream, antibiotic, or home remedy could touch. Over 13 million people worldwide ended up swallowing it, making it a blockbuster for Roche, the company that sold it. For nearly 3 decades, patients endured the grueling monthly lab tests, the mandatory pregnancy prevention rules, and the infamous dry lips that cracked like desert soil, all because this pill worked where others failed. But the victory came at a terrifying price. By 2009, the drug had been named in more than 7,000 lawsuits, accused of leaving a trail of wrecked intestines, broken minds, and grieving families. That year, Roche suddenly yanked Accutane from American shelves, citing business reasons. But to the public, the timing was too suspicious. Jury after jury had been handing down multi-million-dollar verdicts to victims, and Roche's empire of acne relief was collapsing under the weight of human suffering. The known dangers were always chilling. Accutane was notorious as a teratogen, a drug that could deform unborn babies in grotesque ways if taken during pregnancy. To prevent tragedy, female patients were forced into the strict iPledge program, monthly pregnancy tests, 2 forms of contraception, and a battery of warnings that could fill a phone book. But the risks didn't stop there. Accutane inflamed livers, raised cholesterol, and dried out everything from lips to eyeballs, leaving users in a constant state of cracked, bleeding discomfort. What truly made headlines, however, were the darker allegations, that Accutane drove some users into severe depression, even suicide, and that it triggered inflammatory bowel diseases like Crohn's and ulcerative colitis. Dozens of families claimed their teenagers went from fighting acne to fighting for their lives. Some parents buried children who had taken their own lives after mood changes they believed were tied to the drug. Others watched as young adults endured emergency surgeries to remove sections of their intestines after being diagnosed with lifelong gut disease. The courtroom drama was relentless. One New Jersey jury awarded $25 million to a college student who developed ulcerative colitis, requiring multiple surgeries after Accutane use. Across the country, jurors were swayed by testimony that Roche may have downplayed early warning signs, failing to strengthen labels even as adverse events piled up. Roche denied direct responsibility, pointing to mixed scientific evidence about depression and bowel disease, but the sheer number of lawsuits told another story. By the time Roche pulled the brand in 2009, the company had already paid millions in damages, and the credibility of Accutane as a necessary evil for acne was shattered. Ethically, critics accused Roche of prioritizing profit and brand dominance over patient safety, letting millions be exposed to risks that may have outweighed the benefit for all but the most severe cases. The withdrawal marked the end of an era, proving that even drugs for conditions considered non-life-threatening could unleash devastating consequences if safety was ignored. The legacy of Accutane is conflicted. On one hand, it truly cleared skin like no other drug, offering a permanent cure for some who had battled acne for years. On the other hand, it left a scar across medicine as a cautionary tale of hubris. Was clear skin worth lifelong colitis? Was it worth the risk of a teenage suicide? Those questions still haunt parents and patients who lived through the saga. To this day, generic isotretinoin remains available under tight regulation, but the brand name that once dominated has vanished, its shadow cast long over dermatology. The good news is that safer alternatives exist. Dermatologists today rarely rush to isotretinoin. For many patients, topical therapies like benzoyl peroxide, tretinoin creams, or adapalene, differin, work well, especially when paired with topical antibiotics. Oral antibiotics such as doxycycline or minocycline are often used for more stubborn cases, controlling bacteria and inflammation without the nuclear risks. For women, hormonal options like certain birth control pills or spironolactone can be game changers, rebalancing hormones that drive breakouts. Beyond drugs, technology has offered new weapons, blue light and laser therapies that kill acne bacteria, chemical peels that smooth skin, and microdermabrasion that clears pores and scars alike. Even lifestyle shifts, low glycemic diets, cutting back on dairy, managing stress, can dramatically reduce flare-ups for some. For the rare, severe cases where isotretinoin is still needed, it is prescribed under strict watch with mandatory safeguards in place. But for most, the modern arsenal provides enough options to win the fight against acne without gambling on bowel disease or mental collapse. Accutane's fall from grace is a stark reminder. Clear skin is precious, yes, but it should never come at the cost of your sanity or your gut. Beauty is worthless if you're too sick to enjoy it, and thanks to safer alternatives, no one has to make that trade again. Number 5. Darvocet and Darvon. For more than half a century, bottles of Darvocet and Darvon sat quietly in America's medicine cabinets, the kind of everyday painkillers people barely thought twice about. Approved in 1957, propoxyphene, these drugs' active ingredient, was supposed to be the gentler cousin of codeine, something you took for aches, arthritis, or post-surgery soreness. By the 70s and 80s, Darvocet, a mix of propoxyphene and acetaminophen, was one of the most prescribed pain relievers in the country. But behind that familiarity was a danger far worse than the pain it claimed to treat. Propoxyphene wasn't just weak as a painkiller, it was deadly as a chemical. Evidence slowly piled up that it carried the ability to scramble the heart's electrical signals, throwing patients into irregular rhythms, fainting spells, and in many cases, sudden cardiac death. Imagine reaching for relief and instead swallowing a ticking time bomb that didn't even do its job very well. Europe caught on earlier. By 2005, the United Kingdom had already banned propoxyphene after identifying it as a leading cause of fatal overdoses and suicides. Yet in America, the FDA dragged its feet despite repeated warnings from public safety advocates dating back to the 1970s. For years, regulators debated while Americans kept filling prescriptions. In those lost years, countless lives were cut short. Some studies suggested that every year propoxyphene remained on the market, hundreds of Americans were dying from its effects. Even at normal doses, Darvocet could dangerously prolong the heart's PR and QT intervals, the very signals that keep your heartbeat steady. Add to that its addictive potential and toxicity in overdose, and you had a drug that was both ineffective and treacherous. The scandal was not just about the drug itself, but about the astonishing delay in banning it. Petitions to pull Darvocet and Darvon were filed as early as the 1970s, again in 2006, and still nothing happened until 2010. Only after a new round of cardiac safety studies, mounting lawsuits, and the embarrassment of being outpaced by Europe did the FDA finally request a full market withdrawal. In November 2010, Zantac, the company selling Darvocet, pulled it, and by 2011, all propoxyphene products were gone from US shelves. The relief in the medical community was mixed with anger. About time, many doctors said, as they pointed out how many needless deaths had occurred while regulators hesitated. After the ban, research showed an over 80% drop in propoxyphene-related fatalities, a grim confirmation that thousands of deaths could have been avoided had the US acted sooner. Numbers don't lie. One analysis documented 580 deaths involving propoxyphene in a single year before the recall, making it a significant contributor to the opioid death toll long before fentanyl or oxycodone dominated headlines. These weren't only cases of abuse, many were accidental overdoses, or patients who simply combined Darvocet with another sedative without realizing they were courting disaster. In hindsight, the drug's so-called 53-year run was not a testament to its reliability, but to how long a deeply flawed medication can slip through the cracks of oversight when bureaucracy drags its heels. Darvocet became a grim reminder that longevity on the market does not equal safety. The bitter truth is that Darvocet never brought anything unique to the table. Its pain relief was mediocre at best, far weaker than ibuprofen or naproxen, yet its risks were catastrophic. Today, safer options abound. For everyday aches, acetaminophen, Tylenol, or ibuprofen, Advil, can be taken responsibly with little worry of heart arrhythmias. For those battling nerve-related pain, drugs like gabapentin or duloxetine are prescribed instead of opioids. When an opioid is truly necessary, for instance after surgery, modern medicine leans on controlled use of hydrocodone or oxycodone, carefully monitored to reduce risk. Even codeine or tramadol, while not without problems, lack Darvocet's notorious cardiac dangers. And beyond pills, patients today are encouraged to combine drug therapy with non-pharmacological strategies: physical therapy, gentle exercise, hot and cold packs, massage, or topical gels like menthol and diclofenac that target pain at the source. The truth is that Americans never needed Darvocet. They just needed better education about safer alternatives. Now that Darvocet and Darvon have been consigned to history, their story serves as a dark parable. Sometimes the deadliest danger is the one hiding in plain sight, sitting innocently in the cabinet for decades. The next time you hear that a drug is safe because it's been around forever, remember Darvocet and ask yourself whether familiarity is just another mask for neglect. Number 6. Valsartan, losartan, and irbesartan. When Americans picked up their blood pressure pills, they thought they were buying time, not shaving it off. Yet in 2018, a shockwave hit pharmacies nationwide. Trusted drugs like valsartan, losartan, and irbesartan, lifelines for millions, were suddenly recalled. Not because they didn't work, but because they were laced with NDMA, the same carcinogen tied to industrial pollution and cancer clusters. The contamination was traced back to overseas factories in China and India that had quietly changed their chemical processes in 2012, unknowingly generating cancer-causing byproducts. For years, patients popped these pills daily, never suspecting their so-called heart protectors might be seeding cancers in the very organs they were meant to save. Over 75 recalls swept across the US in 2 years, shaking public trust. FDA scientists calculated that if 8,000 people took the highest dose of tainted valsartan every day for 4 years, at least one extra cancer case would occur. That may sound small, until you remember millions were swallowing these drugs for decades. Lawsuits soon followed. Patients with liver, kidney, and gastrointestinal cancers claimed their medicine betrayed them. Regulators slammed manufacturers for sloppy quality control, and questioned why it took independent labs and European watchdogs to uncover what companies should have caught years earlier. It was a bitter pill of irony, treating the silent killer of high blood pressure while silently feeding another killer into people's veins. Thankfully, safer paths exist. Not all Arby's were contaminated. Switching to clean lots from reputable firms solved the problem for many. Doctors also turned to ACE inhibitors like lisinopril, calcium channel blockers like amlodipine, and even beta blockers or diuretics as substitutes. Beyond pills, lifestyle is the strongest medicine. Reducing salt, eating whole foods, exercising, cutting alcohol, managing stress, and quitting smoking can lower blood pressure naturally. The scandal was a wake-up call that no drug supply is invincible. But with today's tighter FDA monitoring and vigilant doctors, Americans can still control hypertension safely without swallowing a hidden carcinogen with every dose. Every pill tells a hidden story. Don't face the next shocking recall alone. Subscribe now, protect yourself, and stay informed.
Thank you for watching all the way to the end. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our daily content. Now feel free to check out some of our newest and best videos currently showing on the screen. Goodbye, and see you in the next video.